After weeks of negotiations, lawmakers in Madison aren't much closer to finalizing a state budget with Governor Tony Evers. Plus, the Department of Public Instruction reworking student testing standards again. Emilee, Fannon, J.R. Ross have details in our final installment of Capital Connection.
This week we begin where are lawmakers on the state budget? Well, the Joint Finance Committee did meet this week, but they took up much lower tier items. A few state agency budgets, nothing major like education or transportation. But the biggest question still in these halls, JR, is where is the tax cut plan? We know GOP leaders, Governor Tony Evers, they are meeting. They were trying to schedule a third meeting, which is always promising signs in divided government. But when are we going to see this plan?
Your guess is as good as mine at this point. Look, it is really unique. The governor is meeting with Republican lawmakers to talk about anything. So that is unusual. It's also unusual how much the members of the caucuses are in the dark from the GOP leaders about what's going on. So typically, the budget process, you have this buy-in from your caucuses. So Republicans are talking, the Senate, the Assembly, what do we want to do? We're in the majority, what do we want to do? Leaders don't want leaks about what they're talking about. So they're kind of keeping their members in the dark. And you can understand why. You don't want to negotiate in the media because things leak out to people like us. Okay, I get that. But you need buy-in from your members to pass anything. And it's kind of created this kind of atmosphere in the Capitol of Republicans don't know what's happening, when it's going to happen, and what it will look like. They're going to be asked to vote for it. Now, we're assuming that Democrats will be asked to provide some votes in this budget because we know the numbers in the Senate and the Assembly. They may not get to 50 votes in the Assembly and 70 in the Senate by themselves, Republicans. But how do you get them there? How many are going to lose the compromised budget? There are a lot of questions. And oh, by the way, we're a month away now in the fiscal year. Nothing happens, no budget, but it's unusual to see this little action on a document that is so important in the Capitol.
Clock is ticking for sure. All right. Also this week, U.S. Senator Ron Johnson took a lot of questions from a panel of reporters, but the biggest headline of all, of course, is what's happening in Washington, D.C. with President Donald Trump's budget bill. Now, Ron Johnson has been one of the biggest opponents, and he doubled down on his criticism because he wants more spending cuts. But the big question is he going to get what he wants, right? He said during this panel when I asked him about it that, I am not going to succumb to any pressure, even from the president or GOP leadership. Okay, well then what does that mean? What does that look like? He says he has the votes to hold it up in the Senate, but will he eventually get what he wants?
Well, what does he really want? So he says he wants pre-pandemic spending. That is not going to happen. Like, look, you should read the tea leaves. You're not going to get that much of a cut in what's happened in the federal government. However, look at 2017. He also held up the first tax plan for Donald Trump in 2017. He wanted a more beneficial tax cut for small businesses. He wanted 1% here. The bill had this. They got something in the middle. So the question I'm hearing from people is, okay, what's his point? What's his point of, okay, this is enough spending cut for me. I'll vote for this because he's not going to get everything he wants. How can he get as much as he can out of this entire deal?
And it's also rare to see, Republicans take a stand and, try to go toe-to-toe with President Trump. And it's somewhat he doesn't really have much to lose. We also asked about his political future. He's running out of bid for president, but he didn't really say no to running for another term. So we'll see what actually happens.
Look, Ron Johnson said back in 2016, 2 terms and that's it. 23 said, well, I have to run because Democrats are in full control. I've got to change the trajectory of the country. He likes being a senator. People will tell you he enjoys this attention. He is a focal point of discussion about this budget. He believes he can impact things. Don't kid yourself. Power is a hell of a drug. He's enjoying this moment. Will he bring him back for 4th term? We'll see. But this is really a moment for him to try and prove what he got there to do, to cut spending and peel back Obamacare.
All right, and last topic we're going to touch on this week is the Department of Public Instruction looking and announcing that they are going to be revamping student and district report cards. They're trying to be really transparent with this process, Jer, because they were under heightened criticism and still are for changing their CUT test scores, which is standardized testing with, measures students' performance.
Yeah, look, they're telling you we're doing it at this point. This is who's involved. This is what we're trying to do. These report cards are gauges for all schools about how they're doing in various measures. They've been on for 15 years. They want to update them. Even talking to some Republicans like, okay, look, I've been burned before, but they're being upfront. They met with Republican lawmakers to talk about what they're doing. They're trying to learn a lesson from last time of, okay, we should be more transparent in what we're trying to do here.
All right, and before we go, I do have an announcement to make that this is my final day at CBS 58, and therefore this will be my last Capitol Connection show. JR, it has been a pleasure working with you and working here at the state capitol over the past 7 years covering Wisconsin politics. It has been a wild ride, and thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care.